Today, I'm going to unbox and share the watch that I've chosen as a tributary memorial for my dad. Welcome to Get It Together, and if you're new here, this channel is just me trying to figure out how to get my life together and sharing the tips and lessons that I learned along the way. Before kicking off, if you just want to see the review of the watch itself and don't really care much about the context or the story, there are indeed timestamps in the description below, so feel free to hop around as you see fit. Now, I'm a watch guy. As someone who loves all things EDC, that's everyday carry to the uninitiated, a wristwatch is definitely something that's on me every single day. But aside from not being rich, that I can't just be buying watches willy-nilly, more importantly, I have a rule that every watch I buy, every timepiece I own, needs to mark an important moment in time or a person that matters deeply to me. It's got to mean something. So that every single time I wear the watch and check the time, I'm simultaneously checking on something or someone of importance to my life's journey. If you saw this video, which I'll link right up here, you'll know that my father was unfortunately murdered a few years ago, and I've been on the search for a watch to commemorate him. I looked through vintage, and yes, corny as it is, even searched and scoured Chrono24 for a birth year watch that matched the year he was born, but nothing spoke to me. Nothing felt representative of how I remember him. I think a part of me also felt for a while that, yo, this is my dad. I gotta save for an Audemars Piguet, Patek, or a Rolex for him. You know, that really weird and irrational belief that the cost of the piece would somehow correlate to my love for my father. What a silly and immature and weird expectations having frame, right? And for the past few years, I just kept waiting and casually searching because one thing was for sure. Expensive or not, it had to be a perfect representation to me of dad. Well, if you saw the thumbnail, you know I most certainly didn't go very expensive at all. Rather, it was one of those moments where you see something and immediately on sight, it's perfect for what it needs to serve and represent. And as I dug deeper, it just got more and more suitable, better and better from there. So without further ado, let's unbox the Seiko Presage SSA405J1, a part of Seiko's cocktail time lineup, referred to them as the Open Heart Blue Moon. Unboxing includes the watch itself, warranty card, instructions, and really, it's an unimpressive unboxing experience as usual with Seikos. But really examining the watch in hand, it's not surprising to anyone by now that dollar to dial, the bang for buck value we as consumers get in terms of dial finishing with watches, no one can touch Seiko. I love this understated dial so damn much. A tremendously subtle geocentric circular series in a gradient of sunburst blue is just so gorgeous yet almost unassuming to me. I love the angular spearhead applied indices in two sizes, with the larger ones marking the 12, 3, 6, and 9, but I especially appreciate that they're mirrored and designed by the hour and minute hand executions in shape and finishing, creating a really nice seamless blend when either lines up precisely with an index. I typically not go for a two-tone blend of gold and silver. For example, even though I could never pull off either of these watches, nor afford them, I personally quite dislike this Rolex Submariner with the two-tone gold and silver against blue, but absolutely love this one with just gold on blue. Definitely a personal preference thing. I know there are tons of people who like two-tone silver and gold, just not really for me. But of course, with this Presage and the main visual feature of this striking blue dial, I think it works perfectly with the exposed gold and silver elements of the movement peeking through the open heart cutout at the 9 o'clock position of the dial, since again, that deep blue dial really steals the show. The gold second hand with the hollow, diamond-shaped counterweight swinging over the silver minutes and hours hands just ties everything together for me. Speaking of the movement, let's go over a quick overview of the specs. This watch is rocking the 4R38 caliber movement, while most are familiar with the tried, tested, and true 4R36 from the host of arguably the most widely owned automatic watches on planet Earth, in Seiko's rich lineup of dive watches. The 4R38 is, in fact, a simpler movement than the 4R36 brother without the day and date complications. They are, in timekeeping standards, essentially identical, however. The 4R38 is an automatic movement that features hacking and hand winding with a 40-ish hour power reserve. This all sits in a 40.5mm polished stainless steel case with a screw-in exhibition case back to offer that open heart, a direct see-through experience. With a signed crown at the 3 o'clock position, I like the size of the crown because honestly it doesn't get in the way of just natural wear and movement at all, but is certainly big enough to pull and turn easily. This open heart Blue Moon is 11.8 millimeters thick, and since this is now the closest thing to a dress watch that I have, that 11.8 millimeter thickness slides under a dress shirt cuff, no problem. It has a lug-to-lug of 47.5 millimeters, which to my mind, and you can be the judge, works well on my 6.5-inch wrist. Finally, spec-wise, it's got 5-bar water resistance, and it's critical to remind everyone that this 5-bar, or 50-meter water resistance, is not a real-life application number. I wouldn't even casually swim with this watch on. The most I'd be personally comfortable doing with it is just hand washing, and I wouldn't be worried at all if it had some kind of rain exposure either. But I mean, I'd never even think to shower with it anyways, mainly because of the final element, which is this gorgeous blue leather trifold clasp strap with faux alligator linework. A wonderful match to the blue dial. It's all under a Hardlex crystal, which I always hear so much flack about from many members of the watch community when talking about much of the entire Presage line. The complaints, of course, being that Hardlex is not the more scratch-resistant sapphire crystal. To be honest, maybe it's because I'll be treating this more of a dress watch. It doesn't bother me since I don't see it being put into any scratch-risking situations like my daily wearers or sports watches. But ultimately, my Seiko SKX007, my daily beater for the past 5 years, still has its original non-sapphire crystal window, and there are no noticeable scratches on it despite having been on my wrist at least 1,000 days of unbabied, regular daily activity wear so far. So those are my specs and my initial thoughts, and if that's what you were looking for, feel free to just click out. But for me, it's now time for my favorite part of any watch, the story. And in this case, sharing the reasons why this is the perfect watch as a tribute to me for my dad. Because everything, and I mean everything about this watch is so fitting for him. Right off with the open heart. The meaning of this open heart for me is about how transparent he was. No frills, no tricks, just pure almost innocence. He was an open book. You can see his eyes and smile from childhood into adulthood really embodies an open heart to me. An open heart in the sense of just wearing his heart on his sleeve. The gorgeous blue dial represents the depth he had as a human and also represents how little I truly got to know his story. This rich dark blue that gradients out to a near black when I gaze at it at some angles feels like an abyss of information experience I never got to hear and learn about from him. Some lasting mystery to the man I never got to fully know, I suppose. He lived so simply and, as a matter of personal philosophy, kept a low profile. And the sheer subtlety of that geocentric pattern, just barely visible, is just so him. He was never a rich man, even beaming with pride once when he called me just to tell me that he got 2 dress shirts for $10 from Walmart. And this watch really mirrors his unpretentious nature. He worked odd hours as an interpreter in several languages, often asking me to remind him what day it was because he really worked 7 days a week. And so even the fact that this watch doesn't have a day or date complication is just so fitting. To top it all off, although being raised in Taiwan as a kid before coming to Canada as a teenager, Dad was born in Japan, and Seiko being both a Japanese company and this particular watch bearing that made in Japan marking between the 6 and 7 o'clock indices just really wraps everything together for me. This is the tribute watch for my dad, the Seiko Presage model SSA405J1, more easily remembered as the Open Heart Blue Moon from Seiko's Cocktail Time collection. I'm curious, story or not, does this watch fit your taste? Would you wear this watch? And more importantly, I'd love to know which watch you own that has a deep meaning for you. I love watch stories, so please do share. And by the way, if you enjoyed this video, I think you'll really like this one right over here. And if you're catching value, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to catch videos just like this one I make in the future. Regardless, thanks so much for kicking it with me, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.